I am going to introduce Dr. Beth Willey. And I'm pulling it up because I learned so much about her when she sent this to me. Dr. Willey received her PhD in comparative literature and theory from Northwestern. Her research interests include contemporary African literature and film, questions of gender, genre, nationalism, globalization. Boy, is that important in this world right now. She's co-edited an essay collection about, and I'm not going to say it, Beth, would you please say it for me?
Sure, it's Tsitsi Dangaremga.
Thank you so much. And is published in journals such as Mosaic, Research in African Literature, and the French Review. Her research explores a range of fields, including sub-Saharan African literature, French and English, indigenous language literatures and translation, post-colonial theory, African film and popular cultural studies, post-colonial interventions, and theories of modernity, I can't say it, and the nation, especially as it's inflected by gender. And then from 19 to 20, she served as the president of the African Literature Association. She's currently our very own vice provost for undergraduate education, and we are so lucky to have her. And now I have to look up, now that I'll have time after this event, look up all those wonderful things that she has researched all her life. So, Dr. Willey, the floor is yours.
Well, thank you, Sherry. Thank you for that lovely introduction. It has been an interesting ride, and it's interesting to be here now. I have been a big supporter of the DTC since it first started, and I love to think about how our students can get both the skills, the competencies, and the self-knowledge to present themselves as continuous learners, as people who are ready to go out into the world and contribute something. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. My slides aren't as pretty as Sherry's. I didn't have a lot of time to work on these, but I wanted to make sure that I could introduce this today. As Sherry said, we've been working with the Council on Post-Secondary Education over the last 2 or 3 years to talk about the 10 essential skills. And these 10 essential skills, as Sherry has already mentioned, are here, right? Communicate effectively, think critically in order to solve problems and create new ideas, apply quantitative reasoning to analyze and solve numerical problems, interact effectively with people from diverse backgrounds, and we're holding on tight to that one right now. Adapt to changing circumstances while leading and supporting others, perform professionally within their chosen field, engage in civic life to improve society, collaborate and work in teams, apply academic knowledge, skills, and abilities to their chosen career, and use information for decision making. So a lot of these should look familiar to many of you. These are basically the NACE 8 plus a couple more. I think that the Council on Post-Secondary Education wanted to make sure that we were emphasizing civic life and a couple of other things that apply directly to how we take academic knowledge and apply it to the life after the academy or outside of the academy. So these shouldn't be a surprise to anyone. What should also not be a surprise is that these were determined by looking at things like NACE, but also looking at employer surveys, talking to employers about the skills that they want from their new employees or people entering the job market. And we, you can see, and I've blown it up a little bit, you can see that these are directly tied to our 10 essential skills here. Things like problem solving, ability to work in teams, written and verbal communication, analytical skills, detail-oriented, which I sort of think equates to our the essential skill of making data-informed decisions. You have to know the details, you have to know the data. Working well with others, your ability to lead and be adaptable, your strategic planning, thinking ahead and problem solving, as well as creativity. Again, that language was in the 10 essential skills when it comes to problem solving. So we are hitting we're hitting the problem right in the center of it when we talk about the 10 essential skills. So these are, I think, not a surprise to any of us. The American Association of Colleges and Universities did a similar survey where they found that most students were prepared in critical thinking and complex problem solving, but not very good or prepared in their communication skills and adaptability, flexibility, and critical thinking. And I think that's really important to hold on to. Adaptability, flexibility, and critical thinking. We know that these are the kinds of things that our students need to develop while they're at U of L. So we need to push them beyond answering the rubric. We need to push them beyond memorizing the right answer and giving it back to us. We need to find ways to make them ready to be flexible and to address new problems with creative solutions. Similarly, the Department of Labor identified communication skills, problem solving, and critical thinking as the keys to success in the 21st century workplace, right? I think that technology and the DTC can seriously help us with many of these skills, as you'll hear later. And as Sherry said, we've gotten our partners to come up with specifically designed modules, assignments, activities to work on some specific skills. But in some ways, I think even more interesting is the idea that we want to teach our students to be lifelong learners, to continue this search for problem-solving skills that they decide on, right? I will never forget Sharon Carrick telling the group once that she does a badge every weekend just because she can, and there's stuff out there to learn, right? So I think this is one of the ways that the DTC could be instrumental in helping all of us keep up to date with our skills, all of us continue to adapt to the changing circumstances, which seem to be changing ever more rapidly, but also prepare our students to learn how to teach themselves the things they need. Because we all know that we can only prepare students for the jobs that are out there right now. We can't necessarily prepare them for the jobs that will be out there in 4 years when the incoming class graduates. We don't know what those jobs may be. So we have to give them the ability to learn new things as they go out into the market. So I love the idea that the mission statement for the Digital Transformation Center is to transform access, awareness, design, and use of technology to embrace digital agility. And there's that word agility, linked to flexibility. Enhance learning and discovery in the Commonwealth. Empower the future of learning, research, and technology through collaboration and communities of practice. And I think that this ties in very well with the Cardinal Core, which is our general education program. If we link what the DTC can do and their mission statement with the mission of the Cardinal Core, Foundations for Thinking, I think we have very powerful tools here to create the kind of flexible, self-motivated students who will engage in learning and learning through technology as something that they want to continue and they realize is a resource for them throughout their professional lives, not only as students, but moving into their post-graduation employment. So this, I think, working with our lovely partners like LinkedIn Learning, Google, Adobe, IBM, Microsoft, we can help make sure our students have the technical skills they need, although as we see in a bunch of these surveys, the employers aren't necessarily worried about technical skills. They assume our students will have them, and many of them do. Our students are digital natives. But this flexibility, agility, creative problem solving comes with figuring out what you don't know, where you can learn it, and then going and doing that on your own. And I think that the DTC and the way that the website is set up with all kinds of resources for students, all kinds of suggestions, I think it's a perfect way for students to enhance these qualities, these competencies, and these dispositions that employers say we need right now. So I'm going to stop sharing now. This is a really brief introduction to why we're doing this, what the university is aiming towards, and what increasingly the Council on Post-Secondary Education is going to require of us and our degree programs in these 10 essential skills. I have always been a little bit, coming out of the humanities, somewhat hesitant to describe what we do as employability skills. But I think that this is the future of the university. I think this is the future of English majors. I think this is the future of comparative literature majors. What I like to tell people is what we learn in the basic foundational courses like Cardinal Core courses is that approach and habit of mind in trying to figure out what you know, what you don't know, and how you can inform yourself on that, how you can improve your own skill sets, how you can improve your ability to think critically, to do problem solving, to communicate effectively. So there is a real possibility, I think, for a partnership here between the offerings of the DTC, all of the resources that we have available through our corporate partners, and our core foundational classes that set students up to be in the best place possible to learn. So I'm really excited that this is going to be the focus for today. I think this is a marvelous opportunity for us to not only meet the mandate of the state, but to help our students set themselves up in the best possible position to go out and have the careers that they're looking for once they graduate. And I think that it's also quite selfishly a chance for those of us who are in the traditional liberal arts to make a claim for what we can contribute to engineers, what we can contribute to cybersecurity specialists. So those are the 10 essential skills. That's how I think we can partner with the DTC and the general education curriculum to really make it possible to bring all of these competencies into our classes while reinforcing the technological agility, digital agility that our students have, and how we can enhance that through asking them to be lifelong learners, encouraging them to take independent access and of these kinds of offerings and abilities that we have available to them. So that's about all I had, Sherry. Does that help set the stage for the discussion for today? I'm happy to take any questions anyone might have about what the CPE is doing in the 10 essential skills, how they've been rolled out at U of L. I certainly have a lot more information about that if you're curious. Questions, thoughts, comments? And I'm happy to go back and share a screen if somebody had a question about one of the slides.
Beth, I really appreciate you talking about all of the different resources that the Digital Transformation Center has that can go broadly, not only across our university, but our community. And I share it out in the community quite often. I need to be a better steward of sharing it out here. So thank you for doing that. That's really important. Anybody have any questions on, because that is definitely Dr. Willey's expertise and not mine. Any questions about how the CPE is working with these 10 essential skills?
Looks like Andrew has a question.
Yeah.
Thanks, Beth. I noticed that diversity is still part of the CPE 10 essential skills. I'm just going to ask that question that's on everyone's minds. Is this going to survive? I know being in the College of Business, our employers are still telling us that being able to work in diverse teams, multi-generational teams, diverse in many different ways, cultural diversity and so on is still an essential skill that they want. But it seems like this is under assault today. how do we move forward with delivering what we know our employers are wanting us to do without pissing off the legislature?
So, Andrew, funny you mentioned this. I was at an event last night where Aaron Thompson was also present, and I said, Aaron, I'm really encouraged that this is in the essential skills as a point where we know, as you say, employers want our students to be able to work with people who come from fundamentally different perspectives than themselves, right? Whether that's internationally or even nationally. And that there's a real advantage to the workplace in having different viewpoints represented. When we talk about creativity, when we talk about problem solving, we all know that we are more effective if we have lots of different points of view represented, lots of different perspectives, backgrounds, different kinds of knowledge. And Aaron said, yes, I'm glad it's in there too. So we're being recorded now, so I can't go much more into my conversations with Dr. Thompson. But I do think it's essential that we continue to lean on this as something we know that enhances leadership skills, that enhances your ability to work in teams, that enhances your ability to be a productive member of a workforce. And as I said, we know it also creates better problem solving, right? That ability to think creatively and solve problems, that flexibility and adaptability, that the NACE survey, the AACU survey, the Department of Labor publication, we know that they all talk about this. And we know that the kinds of trainings that we give students in terms of giving them a chance to learn more about different perspectives and different bases of knowledge, we know that's crucial to making sure that our students enter into the workforce having the kinds of skills, dispositions, and habits of mind that employers value. So I think it's very important to hold on to that as part of what we do and part of what we know it's going to take to make our students successful. Does that sort of answer your question?
Oh, no, absolutely. Thank you. Thank you. I'm glad that we have a common mindset on the importance of developing these skills.
Right. Yeah, and until we hear differently, it's going to stay in there. So there it is. Other questions or thoughts about the 10 essential skills? I will tell you that when CP started this project, they called it the Graduate Profile Academy because they very much wanted to be assured that every graduate from a public institution in the state of Kentucky would have some level of mastery over these 10 essential skills.
And I think they're broad enough, but specific enough that it can fit in any content in higher ed.
Yeah. So we have actually, part of the rollout of this on our campus was through the Cardinal Core program. And we invited instructors to rewrite a syllabus, not to change necessarily the content of what they were doing, but to link their content to where they saw these skills in action. This goes back to that argument that in the humanities, we always claim we're teaching critical thinking or, analysis. Okay, so where do you do that in your class? Show us where, show the students where you're doing it. Because part of the problem is that we claim we're telling students, that we're teaching them these things, but we don't tell them where or when or how. So to give students the ability to have that reflective moment and say, okay, here's where we're doing critical thinking, here's where we're doing analysis, here's where we're doing teamwork, really gives them the tools they need to make that part of their own self-presentation. We managed to put the 10 essential skills into every single category within the Cardinal Core curriculum, including a math class. And they didn't just do quantitative analysis, right? They also did other things. They did critical thinking. They did working in teams. So they really are present all across the curriculum. The point of the project is to make that more accessible to the students, to make it obvious on the surface so that they can then reflect on those skills and present to others how they have been given opportunities to encounter them, reinforce them, and master them.
That's great. I think this conversation definitely needs to be continued, especially here in the Digital Transformation Center, and how we can help do that to infuse these throughout U of L. And when we're working with the community, I think when we start thinking about them in those terms where we have them laid out in front of us and we have to identify that, it really changes how we teach.
Yeah. In linguistics, we talk about our passive vocabularies and our active vocabularies. And so for many students, these were passive skills. They could do them, but they couldn't name them and they couldn't identify them. To turn them into a sort of active skill, here's how I've demonstrated this, here's how I've demonstrated that, gives them a real leg up, I think, when they're talking to potential employers. Right,
and it goes well on their resume.
Yeah, there you go. There you go.
Thank you so much, Dr. Willey. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. And if anybody has any follow-up questions, I'm sure Sherry can make my email address available, and I'd love to continue this conversation in whatever venue you all would like.
I'll do that. I'll follow up with everybody with links to our speakers. Thank you. Enjoy your day. Cheer the Cards on, and we hope to see you back.
All right. Go Cards. Thanks.